Okay, welcome everyone. I'm not gonna do a huge prep for what's upcoming because I already sent an enormous email that you probably didn't read. So I'm hoping that the presentation will have to guide you through the event. I'm Milica. I'm the person behind all the emails, communication, lousy marketing materials and everything. My partner in crime is Philip. Philip, say hi, raise hand. Yeah. We're the people behind this nice organization. And the first question is, why are we even doing this? Simply because we found that there is a huge need for tech people or people that are in tech leadership roles to kind of gather together, to exchange, to see how we can help and support one another. So maybe we're totally off. This event will show that, but hopefully we are kind of close to right. And then this event, as was already announced so many times, is all about exchange, interaction, and communication between all of us. So I know it's not super convenient for all the introverts out there, but I'm hoping that open space will be at least a bit more comfortable for all of you. For me, I don't have any problems, as you can probably realize. Easy for an extrovert. Okay, so I would start with some basic info and how we're gonna do this today. So welcome and intro, pretty much what we're doing right now, 15 minutes. Then we're gonna start with panel discussion. We will have a short break, 20-minute break, not a short, but not a really long one, that we will also use for voting for the open space. We'll get to that one a bit later. Then open space, huge slot for a lot of different topics, exchange, etc., and networking. So the best part of this food and drinks, us kind of hanging together and spending the nice evening together. Bottom line, what we are really hoping to do is to keep this agile and kind of adapt as we go. It's not set in stone. This is not a fully planned conference. We do have an agenda. We're going to try to follow it, but we're also more than happy to adapt if that's needed. Okay, before I start with the panel, I just wanted to do a couple of quick agreements. So we're a big group, and to avoid me yelling in the mic, hello, people, can I get your attention? And kind of, making a clown of myself, I wanted to try something super easy. So whenever you see me with a hand up, whoever is the first person to see, stop talking and bring your hand up as well. Can we try that out quickly? Okay. That means that we are making the room silent. Super easy and quick. We're going to try it when you're actually talking and there is some noise around. Okay, so this one is going to help us kind of focus and realize what are the next steps and kind of agree on that one. Next one, super important. We're going to have this big break, but whenever you need to go, just go. This is not like no one is going to control you or be annoyed by you leaving the space. So that's a really important one. Feel free to do whatever you need to do. We'll have enough time for mingling, food and drinks afterwards. So count on that one. And the last one, we are recording the whole event and we will be sharing panel discussion on YouTube. If for whatever reason you're not comfortable with your face being part of this kind of overview of what we did in Unconference or whatever, please reach out to me or Philip and let us know, and we will make sure that your face is not there. So just kind of respecting your privacy. Okay, we didn't ask you when you were applying, what's your role, where are you coming from, what do you want, things like that, because it's super annoying and I hate when people ask me that. But just so that we can easily feel the crowd, I would like to ask, so how many of you are coming from HR or people roles? So talent acquisition, learning and development, people coaches, can you raise your hand just so we feel? Okay, beautiful. Then tech leadership roles, tech lead, team lead, C something, VP something. How many of you is in that role? Okay, tech development roles, engineers, QAs, data engineers, data science. Okay, beautiful. Product-oriented roles, product owners, product managers. Beautiful. Okay, and the last one, agile-oriented roles, scrum masters, coaches, anyone coming from that one? Okay, lonely people, I got you. Okay, beautiful. It's a pretty diverse group. That's super, super cool because all the topics that we have are actually widely spread. So I'm lucky to have that. Okay, starting with the panel, not a long introduction. You already saw who these people are. You can just easily jump on their LinkedIn profile. So I'm not gonna tell you how super intelligent, smart, well-educated, I don't know, great people they are. I'm gonna talk more about how empathetic, how people focused these people are, which was the reason why we're having exactly them. I think this event was organized in a way that we actually have people who are sharing the same values. And that's how we're also working with Tenderly. Super happy and super grateful for your support here. And so I'm going to invite them to kind of take their seats here. First person that I'm going to mention is Katy, because she was the first one to kind of align on this event. It was it was super unplanned, and it kind of escalated into the Unconference. Katy is my ex-colleague and a dear friend, someone who's super focused on people, their development, yeah, I'm super grateful that she came all the way from Malaga. That's one interesting thing to share. And thank you. Grateful to have you here. Then continuing with ladies, Anja. I'm always struggling to say that she's my ex-colleague because we never officially actually worked together in a company, but we are kind of ex-colleagues. But more importantly, dear friend, someone who went through very wide variety of different roles. So kind of has experience starting from software development up to being a therapist right now. She's above all my friend, mentor, coach, and someone whom I have very deep conversations that none of you would like to hear about. Trust me on that one. Then Vukstan, I already shared, we don't know each other for a very long time, but it was a kind of a very instant connection and a click. We share deep passion for stand-up comedy. And are very opinionated there. So thank you for coming. He's also bringing a lot of diverse experience, and I'm hoping we'll have a great conversation. Thank you for being here. Last but not least, Branislav, whom a lot of you already know. He's coming from Tenderly, but more importantly, coming from university and education. So I think that's a very important and diverse perspective to have, especially in this round. Also, the nicest person that I met recently, and super happy to have him here. Thank you for coming. Okay, ready to roll? Ready? Yeah? Okay. I prepared questions. I have to read through them. Okay, so first things first, I wanted us to kind of maybe model a bit of creating psychological safety and start with, how are you coming here today? I'm going to start just to make things easy for you. But yeah. So how am I coming? Super excited. Also super nervous. If you haven't had a chance to notice that, I'm super nervous. And also curious about what we will actually gonna have here today and how this all will unravel. So yeah, that's me. Anja, do you want to go next?
Let me see if I know how this works. So with microphones, it's like, is it here or here? So also a bit nervous, as you can see. Also very excited because these days usually I work with individuals and I only have one person across me. So now this is a different situation where there is a lot of you. So I'm hoping also to maybe have a new experience with conversations around future, because usually in therapy we talk about past. Yeah. So thank you all.
Yeah, I arrived here already inspired. Yeah, as Melita mentioned, there was a really huge buildup before coming here. The first time in Serbia, the very first time in Belgrade. However, not feeling strange in a strange way, because Belgrade reminds me a little bit of my home country and the home capital, Warsaw in Poland. At the same time, it's in the south of Europe, so where I currently live in Andalusia, Spain. I feel somehow very welcome here and very much at home, but in a strange way. So these past 48 hours, I got very inspired by the city. I experienced a lot of hospitality, lots of warmth, lots of surprises in a good way. So I know that the idea for this event started from a very challenging 2023, 2022 in the tech industry, and we had a discussion, hey, we want to feel inspired, we want to feel motivated, we wanted to feel good and happy about what's coming up, even though we're sort of scared and fearful and we don't know what's going to happen. So glad to say I arrived here inspired already, and I'm really looking forward to be inspired more. Thank you. Oh, you have one, right?
Okay, so I'm arriving here well excited. I hope to learn something new, and I hope to share something for all of you that you hopefully will find interesting. So,
okay, this is working. Feels like I'm a bit louder than the rest of you. Sorry. I'm super excited about this event. I'm really looking forward to the discussions we're going to have. So my role in Tenderly is a bit specific, where I'm on the cusp between technology and people, but more on the people side. And I'm really excited to have a room full of people who are also similar in there and being able to talk about all these things. And I think that, yeah, we're going to have a useful and productive discussion, and hopefully be able to energize ourselves to move forward and move more powerfully into the future. Looking forward to it.
Amazing. Thank you all. Okay, so quickly before we start, if you have any question at any point, so this is not an event where you kind of wait for a special break and we kind of, go to you and ask. If you have any question, just feel free to raise your hand. We have Milos helping us with the mic. He will come to you so you can ask your question. If you're not a fan of mic, you can also do it differently, but it's easier because in the recording, we're just gonna have it nicer. So, okay. First things first, to be able to talk about the future of tech, it always triggers me to kind of think about the old saying that we have, like the history is our teacher, yada, yada. But then I also see complexity kind of laughing at it, right? Because something happened in the past, it doesn't mean it will happen in the future, even if the circumstances are similar, because they're never the same. So my question would be, what is your take on this one? Was there anything from history that we learned that we could have used in this past couple of years that is helping us now progress to the future? Is there anything we can use from past experiences right now? Question goes to everyone.
okay. Well, I think that we can all agree that technology changes society, basically. And with this change, technology also can be dangerous. And with any technology, you can say that you're always presented with a choice. You can use it or you can stop using it, basically. But today I would like to talk a little bit about that choice. And I would like to talk about how those choices actually aren't choices at all sometimes. Because with any new technology, it starts with very simple choice, and as it develops and as it progresses, this choice sort of increases in the scope until the only choice that you're left with comes as a choice of being a part of society or not. And as an example, just to share how this develops, I can talk a bit about something that happened like a decade ago, because I won't go further away than that. Yeah, using history, exactly. And the thing starts with like a browser extension that's called AdBlock Plus. It's an extension for Firefox. And the idea behind this extension is that it allows you to block the ads, as it says, And how does it work? Basically, it lets you as a user, or it used to let you to do that, to specify regular expressions, which is like a string of characters that let you express like which URLs you want to block from showing content to you. So for example, you could block an ad serving businesses from displaying their content. So when you are surfing the web, you won't see them on the banners, they won't pop up as ads, etc. And the issue with this was that users could do that, but these companies are constantly changing these URLs, so you need to maintain that yourself. And at one point, AdBlock thought of a solution. Basically, they offered a subscription model where you could pay them, and then they hired people who maintain this instead of you. So you had to like subscribe to these lists of ad blockers. And then they also did that for trackers, for internet trackers. And one of those trackers that they did it for was Google Analytics, basically. And it worked like that. You could block Google Analytics up to a certain point, after which they removed it from those lists. So how did it happen? It happened in a quite, well, funny but cunning way from Google. Basically, if you want, as a web developer, if you want to include Google Analytics into your website, you put a small piece of JavaScript code at the beginning of your HTML page, and then it loads up. So if you want to block it, as this extension does, it simply removes that piece of JavaScript code. But then Google thought about including some helpful functions, like generic JavaScript functions, in their code. So when web developers, they said like, hey, you guys can use these functions, they are helpful, you can build your website logic with it, your website core functionality, and developers did just that. So now, if you wanted to block Google Analytics, the choice that you previously had, like, I don't want to be tracked by Google, stopped being that choice, and now the choice became, do I want to see a functioning website or not? Basically, so that's a choice that it developed into. So that's why they had to remove Google Analytics from this ad blocker. Otherwise, people won't use it because half of the websites stopped working. And today, it's pretty hard to actually prevent Google from doing this. And of course, Google learned from this, and they did it for a lot of their services. So now we know, like Google, they are in surveillance business. Actually, I mean, they sell ads, of course, that's how they make money, but they surveil you, they track you. And of course, everyone knows that, but we can't stop using them. And why can't we stop using them? Well, for example, if I said, okay, I don't want to be tracked by Google, I could say like, okay, I don't want to participate in this tracking. I won't send an email to anyone using Gmail account today. And that would sort of remove me from a lot of discussions happening on email. Like, that's not an easy choice to make. And also, the issue here today, of course, is not only email. It's like if you want to share a document, for example, if you want to share a picture, or if you want to receive a picture from your friend who is using your services, it's not really a choice for you to say, I don't want to be tracked, I don't want to use this technology. And I think that like the same thing is happening with mobile phones. When mobile phones showed up, they were like a nice piece of tech that you carried around to meet with your friends, to like, I don't know, take some pictures, maybe play some small games. And today, mobile phones, like, can you imagine like your life without a mobile phone? I know like one person, or at least that didn't have a mobile phone. Previously, it was like one of professors at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering, actually. He was a weird guy, but he was the only one actually not having a phone, because right now, not having a phone and even social media up to a point kind of separates you from society. Like, you can say, I don't want to have a TikTok, Instagram, or like TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, or whatever, but then you sit around in a group and there are discussions around this, and you're like, you know, sitting there and thinking about other stuff, and you try to chime in with something else. But this is how society develops. So tomorrow, if we end up in a future where you say like, okay, that we can imagine some metaverse happening, right? Or something like that. and you one day are like, I don't want to participate in this, I don't want to be in the metaverse, then you may find out that once you leave, go outside, there's no one there. Like your only choice becomes to be there in the metaverse with everyone else. And I feel that it's very important how we develop those technologies. I think that it's very important that we learn from history, from like these choices that aren't choices actually, and that we start to insist on the technology being built differently. And what I mean by that is to actually have a technology being built by like open source and not closed source, and also like decisions that are made more transparently and so on. Yeah, go ahead.
I just had it because what you said is pretty much, or at least how I got it, is that what we can learn is a pattern. Like, what are the patterns from the past that we can maybe look at and kind of see if they make sense for the future? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes. So like my take on this, that I mean, I come as my background is in like Web3 and blockchain industry. And the things that I like about this industry is that it has certain values and principles that are based on like having the technology being open, and having the technology maybe not even necessarily open in a sense while it is developed, but open in a sense that it is executed transparently, that you can see what is being executed, and that you cannot have a closed source code where something is hidden from you, where the real business model is for them to track you, or where the real business model becomes something else, and you end up in a world which you don't want to be a part of, but you don't have a choice. So yeah, maybe later on I can speak more about these technologies, so not to hug the mic, for too long. Yeah.
Okay, this is working. Yeah, I'm going to do this a lot. My take is like a totally different field of world and human future. I guess I was thinking about learning from history, and then it got me thinking that we as people are actually not learning enough about ourselves when we think about history or the future. So just a simple example, when Milica asked in May, I think, if I want to be a part of this conference, I thought to myself, well, it's going to be in September, and by September, I'm going to be a person that's not nervous. I enjoy doing talks. I love public speaking. When in fact, in my 40 years of life, I was never comfortable giving a talk. I was always nervous, and I didn't learn anything from that experience. It was actually like, no, I'm going to be great. I'm going to be relaxed. Everything is going to be fine. And that got me thinking that usually we think that in the future, we are going to be these great, awesome people that have all the abilities and don't have fears and know everything, and they actually enjoy themselves. But when we look at the past, it's usually not the case. It's usually pretty underwhelming. And when we think about it, it's like, okay, it was fine, but not so mind-blowing. And then I found that it was actually a research done called, I think the project was called Future of Self, where they got people, they split them into two groups, and they asked one group, okay, imagine your favorite band at the moment, and what money would you be ready to pay for their concert in 10 years' time? And the average price that people were ready to pay for it was around $130. But the other group had a different question. Your band that was favorite band for you 10 years ago is playing now. How much money would you give for that concert? And the price was around $80. So even though we know that something that we were listening 10 years ago, we are not ready to give more than $80, we think that in 10 years' time, we will be ready to give $130 and it will be a great experience. It will be worth it. So it's kind of like a notion that in the future, everything will be better. We will be better people. Things will be great. There will be justice. And I think it's actually a mistake that we are making out of goodwill. but definitely a mistaken thinking. So I guess my point would be that we could learn more from our own experience, of also, of course, sharing with other people. But there are a lot of lessons that kind of go past us and we don't learn anything from it.
Do I ask, do we know why now, or is that too much? Okay, I had the same thing. So when I was kind of thinking about what I'm going to say today, right, I was kind of preparing myself. I was super funny at home. I was so great. You know, I could easily start up my own stand-up show. Now I'm here, I'm like, right? So that's why I'm not doing it. But yeah, I can totally see what you mean. Totally with you. Okay, thank you.
It's working. I think I already learned from both of you, and both perspectives were something I have not expected that will be brought in here, and something I've been reflecting on with regards to the history of tech. Also relates to my original education and background. I actually started off working as a psychologist, clinical psychologist. But at the same time, I was always passionate about learning languages. And my parents were finance professionals who believed that I should have a serious business job. And they tried to talk about the economy and finance in a philosophical way. So yeah, I ended up studying business too. So I made sense out of all that, entering the job market in around 2009, 2010, global financial crisis. I moved to Spain, probably not the best country to be in around those years. Also tried to find my first job. So I ended up working first as a psychologist and then as a recruiter for an agency, learning about loads of industries, loads of countries, and speaking different languages such as Polish, English, Spanish, Portuguese opened up to different exchanges and learning about raising economies and raising walls. Eventually, it got me into tech. I always felt very fascinated about game development, music tech. And I was lucky enough to get into those industries and work in companies developing games and audio tech eventually. But what I thought about the history and also a bit of my personal journey with tech, even though sometimes being a trained psychologist, business person, someone working from recruitment, talent, people space, I do feel like I hijacked into this tech space myself, and I feel a huge imposter syndrome, as if I do not belong here. Because, well, maybe I can understand some code, maybe I can even write something in Python, but I'm not a programmer. I'm not writing code for a living, and sometimes it feels, you're in a supportive function. But what history of tech taught me is the roles that people play building tech are changing, and everyone participating in building has a huge impact into where the products, where the objects, where the abstract ideas will end up. And I think we all have this ethical necessity to decide when to raise a hand, when to discuss the implications of what we are developing, whom we are hiring, how we are hiring, how do we make sure we include people in tech, how we include people with diverse opinions. So I think we are still learning as a humanity, and the journey is not over, not at all. It's just about to start. And as a final thought, coming back to the psychological background, I thought that fear of the unknown, fear of what's coming up that we don't know is very natural for the human beings, and is older than, well, it's older than tech. It's older than any human invention, I guess. The way we are wired to explore the world and feel about it, and fear is one of the basic emotions that we can feel. So what people feel about the future, the evolution, revolution, is quite natural, but I feel like as a humanity, we're evolving as well. So preparing our emotions, rewiring the natural fear into more constructive emotion, excitement, energy, is something that we could also discuss in this round, and I'll be really curious to learn from you. What do you think? Yeah.
Okay. Really interesting perspectives, and I really like hearing all of these like different takes on this question. The original question was like history and how it's going to affect the future, right? So I think that in tech, it's very easy to be, as you mentioned, it's very easy to be afraid of what's going to come because it's very hard to predict. If we look at recent history of tech, like computing and stuff like that, from the 60s or 70s onward, it would probably be safe to say that it was hard to predict what's going to happen in the next 5 years, right? So at that point, any predictions that had been made at that point would have been proven to be false 5 years later. And then looking back, we would all think that we were being silly and stuff like that. But like with the advance of the internet and the speed at which computing happens, and then with phones and social media and stuff like that, the way we approach tech, the way we use it, is always so very different in the very recent, in the very near future, that it's probably safe to say that there's no practical use in trying to predict what's going to happen. And then it's natural that that's going to cause some fear. But my belief, at least, is that like looking back at how tech developed, like the very recent computational tech, but also like any sort of technology, is that it ends up being like a positive change for humanity, right? Simply, and this is like my just personal belief that I can't back up with data, but like my personal belief is that this happens because of the power of the human spirit and like how we want to be constructive, how we want to be creative, and how we want to collaborate and solve problems. And I think that that's something that's fundamental, and that any technology that comes to us ends up being used in that way. A very cool recent example that I heard of that I think showcases this very well is the advent of photography, which you might be, as a painter, you might be afraid that you're going to lose your job because photographs have come and it's much easier and much more effective to create pictures or portraits of people. But actually what we now know has happened is that people really still want to paint because painting is a core human thing that children do. It's one of the first things that they do, right? And we're not going to stop just because we have photographs, right? And in fact, what we have happened is there's a completely new art form that's photography that has its own set of skills and its own aesthetic. And so sort of my take is that this is something that happens over and over again in the history of humanity. It's something that will probably happen with the technologies that we have developing now. It's just that we can't see how, maybe. But I think that it's safe to at least be optimistic, but not at the expense of skepticism, right? It's always good to question how we do things and how we're going to approach these technologies, because technologies can be used for constructive or for disruptive things as well. But like as long as we approach them with a healthy mindset, I think that it's safe to just believe that we're going to find a good and constructive way to use them, even if we don't see it right now, right? So yeah, that's it in short, I think. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you all. I think it was so diverse. I love this one. How does this all resonate with you? Any questions, thoughts? Yeah, Milos will bring you the mic.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Michailo, and I really liked all of your insights that you had. It's very diverse. And my question is probably, do you think that the technology like artificial intelligence will play a similar part where nobody can do their job without using it? and what does that actually mean for all of us? And I had another question, but I forgot it.
Totally fine with you.
Is this for someone specifically, or should we all?
No, I think that everybody can answer because I think it's very broad.
I can speak for myself. I think yes, artificial intelligence will become important, especially in productivity, in getting out of the mundane tasks. I prefer to see it as an accelerator in whatever I do, facilitator, and whom will not learn to use the basics or try to follow what's happening in tools, in LLM, will basically be slower, will be left behind a little bit, as following the Vuxan's metaphor. By the way, I tried not having a mobile phone. I still have my dumb phone, how I call it, sometimes if I want to scare people away. Yeah, so sometimes there is a rebel in me against the tech, but it's the balance. You learn about tech and then you decide what to use and how to use it and how it helps you become better at your job. So short, yes.
I think it was very similar to what we talked last night, because we had a part of that conversation is like, if we get rid of all those mundane tasks and kind of repeating jobs and kind of, manual tasks that no one likes to do, how much mental space or mind space will we have to be even better at what we are as humans? And we are great at progressing. So how can we use that extra mind space, extra, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, from tech perspective, I cannot really offer, how to say, an exact response since I'm not in the AI. It's more, how to say, I try at least to think in a way like what you can build in a sense of AI and what you cannot, at least not as far as we've come. Like from the AI, if you look at the human, like if you look at our cognitive brain, I think that you can replicate that. Like for an AI to perform a tasks that we can perform, like for example, writing code, probably at some point it can do that task pretty well. But then again, from the other point, if you look like at humans, if you look at like why humans do things, we like to think that we're like rational and logical beings, but actually that's not really how we make decisions usually. Usually it's like something about the gut feeling that you have for some decision, and you make that decision, although your brain is telling you, you know what, these are the arguments here, you shouldn't take the job or whatever, but you decide to do it just because you feel like it. And I think that's hard to replicate. And I believe that well, if you want in business or in life, whatever, it's the thing that AI cannot easily like be built around. And I don't really see that we will even try to do so, that we will, as someone has said, like, change these mundane tasks. So don't, repeat the same thing that you do day in, day out, and focus on maybe something that is like more creative, or like in short term, at least, AI will help you to increase your output, definitely to increase your productivity, because you can use it as like a pal, like coding pal or thinking pal for some stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's how much I can offer. It's like, I guess that maybe if you think about it from that perspective, maybe you will come to some other conclusion, and which I would love to hear. So yeah, feel free to ping me if you come to a better conclusion.
I can just say this sounds like an example of what I was talking about. We think that AI will rid us of mundane tasks, and then we will be productive and have the mental space and do all the amazing stuff. But in reality, we will be on Instagram and Facebook and just do nothing. So I guess I would just tie that into that conclusion. Not to be pessimistic.
And not being pessimistic at all. So my thinking on this topic is that like AI will for sure take over some of the jobs that we are doing now, because like as a tool, it's just so super powerful. But I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because from my point of view, I think that there will be many more new opportunities open instead of that than the ones that are gone. And so a simple example is that of something like that happening before is computers arriving and removing the need for people to manually add and multiply numbers, which was a job that you could do. You could be a computer, like as a person, just computing numbers. That was a job that existed. Now it doesn't, because we have like machines that can do that. I think that with AI, something similar will happen, where people that used to do those jobs like might not use AI now with the new jobs that are open with AI, but there will be other things that they can do. And AI will give us an opportunity to do something that's interesting and exciting. And also, I think that much more importantly, AI might help us to focus on some issues that we have regarding efficiency and stuff like that. So since I come from an educational background, something that's very interesting to me right now is how students are using AI to do their assignments, and then the professors can't figure out if it was done by AI or not. But then the question that the teachers should be asking themselves was this a good task to give in the first place or not? Because now maybe I can think of a task that's going to require the student to use their own humanity in a more deep and connected way than I had been doing this earlier. So that's an interesting thing that can come about, where like it's not that the teaching profession is being lost, it's being deepened and made more strong with the advent of a technology such as this one. And yeah, so there will be some people who draw the short end of the stick, where they just lose their job because AI has come around. But my belief is at least that there will be other options, for one, and two, for most cases, it will actually be that these people can just focus on a more interesting and more creative and more human in the end part of their job, right? So yeah, no, I don't have any data to back this up, but yeah, that's.
I got inspired, so I wanted just to add about a thought and a conversation we had last night. What happens, and I think we are not so far away from understanding what gut feeling, intuition, not even emotional recognition, but generating emotions is. And we would think this is a very human way of understanding each other. But what happens if AI, and when AI is better at that, at dissecting the gut feeling, intuitive, feeling-based decision-making and reaction? Because at the end of the day, I think we are not so far away from dissecting that and learning more about the human psyche. So I think this is gonna be very interesting when we get into this traditionally very human area of interaction. For instance, what if, and there was some research recently about the apps for mental health, where certain people prefer to interact with AI because the generated reply sounded more empathetic, less biased than a real human therapeutist. So here's an interesting thing, what impact it has on human-to-human relationships, human-to-human transactions. I mean, it's kind of giving me an exploding head emoji image right now.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting topic, but then I would say, like, if for real we can develop an AI, if we can, I mean, we can all think about it, that's easy, about an AI that can show real emotions and that can have this gut feeling and that can show real, like, generic compassion and everything, then, well, then it becomes, you know, it comes to a point where you then can ask like who is a human and who is an AI or who is a robot, and there are many books written about such stuff, many of them being in sci-fi. For example, Isaac Asimov has written stuff about this. And I believe this is a far away future, maybe. But then it's also a point to how will our reality look then, which is what we have already said, or Branislav has said. It's pretty hard to imagine right now that far away in the future. Maybe we will have the metaverse where everyone will be able to, you know, think of his own Serbia or his own country where he's, I don't know, flying a plane because he feels like it. So we are all flying a plane and AI is programming while we do that. Maybe that's how it looks. But I feel that that's pretty far off for us to have a concrete answer right now. So we can only offer like what we see like short term, which is like, you know, human plus AI equals more like output, more better engineering, better, I don't know, like stuff that we build, versus AI on its own doing some stuff which are, you know, for whatever reason.
Going back to what was said earlier, but just wanted to reflect on that. I think one thing is for sure that as humans, we're definitely great at adapting. So I think we're maybe a bit too much fearful about how the future will look like if we look at how adaptable we are in every possible sense, right? So I have just a very stupid example. So I have planned a beautiful vacation, right? I have an idea how the vacation is going to look like. I go on a vacation. It's a vacation from hell. Do I die there? No, I adapt. I make the best out of it and I go home, right? It's a very simple way how our reality, how our emotions, how our mental states change. So I think what Luxon said already is what we should be maybe thinking is how do we use AI to actually enhance our human experience and what we are and what we can become. I think that's kind of like the silver lining in the whole story to get on a positive side. What do you think about it? Any more questions, reflections? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Hello. It inspired me the similarity between the human gut, like statically probabilistic, what we have experienced in our life, and in artificial intelligence, like also most probabilistic solution. I found that's very similar, and I treat AI like a tool, and that tool will show us in the mirror. Something like that are my thoughts.
I think that that's an interesting insight. So I think that recently the development of AI, where it started sort of like mimicking how humans behave, is because they started incorporating like probabilistic models as well, right? My feeling is that AI is still like quite far away from like genuine creativity, human creativity, even though it functionally sometimes might like do things that look like human creativity. And just to maybe link back to what you mentioned, how we interact with AI, if they can look like humans and do things that we can do and stuff like this. So what has happened historically already, and what seems probable to happen, is that the human connection is something that simply can't be replaced by a machine because it's not a human, right? So there will always be endeavors where we want to connect with humans, even if we can do something with an AI. This has happened, for example, in games, strategic games such as chess, where people still play chess even though an AI is much stronger than any human, right? Or also like in learning, where it's very possible to learn at a high school or even higher education level just online by watching videos, right? But still, there is a huge value of talking to people when you are learning. So my sense of it is that even if AI can come to a point where it's completely mimicking, for example, our emotions or stuff like that, even if there is some trivial function that this is trivial way that this is going to be useful, there's still going to be a huge value in having human-to-human connections, and that's never going to go away because it's simply irreplaceable, right? And that's, I think, a good way to just approach it and be have a healthy mindset going into it, right?
Yeah, I would just like to share an observation I have based on your insight. I'm looking at the room and I thought also how Milica set up the event, the original text was generated by the AI.
Yeah.
I think that image
Picture as
The
well.
image as
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
yeah. I wonder, our panel could have been generated by the AI as well. It could have been much more
Plot twist.
data-driven, research-driven. Still, we are here. I don't know. Maybe you want us to go, but we're still here. Not so many people leaving. We still feel like the room is full of humans that are willing to listen to humans. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, we're leaving out a very important aspect in the somatic experience, like touch
Yeah.
and hug. And like, you know, when you're super nervous, there is no AI that is gonna help you as much as a hug from a friend, right? So I think those experiences are just not exchangeable. We cannot go there. I love the example. One thing that I wanted to ask, I loved your example last night about the board games and chess.
Yeah.
So I would love if you would tell that story.
Yeah, yeah. I love telling that story. Apologies to anyone who has already heard it. I see there are a couple of my students here as well. But like something that we've had happen with AI very recently, because in 2016, the AI became capable of beating the best human players at a board game called Go, which is a fairly complex strategic game. Most people say more complex than chess, but like they're from a human point of view, they're at a similar level of complexity where you can just spend your whole life learning the game and never becoming truly a master. There's always going to be someone else who is better than you. And like in the 90s, the computers became able to beat people at chess. And then in 2016 at Go, which was thought to be like the pinnacle. When we can do this with AI, we can basically do anything because you needed human intuition basically to be good at Go. That was something that machines couldn't do. But then in 2016, the AIs got the ability to basically mimic human intuition, right? They can do what seems to be human intuition. And the professionals who play Go at that point became really, really scared because they thought that they would first lose their jobs completely because people wouldn't be interested in playing. They wouldn't be interested in human play. People wouldn't be interested to learn Go because a huge part of their jobs was also advocating the game and teaching other people. But in fact, the reverse had happened, right? Which is very clear, like from this standpoint, where the AI basically made the game more beautiful and more interesting for the professionals because it deepened the understanding of the game. Now they can play at a higher level. It enabled them to learn much more about the game because they can use the AI as a tool to learn. And of course, they play it more than ever because it's super fun for them to play against other humans. So the competition aspect never goes away. Even though I can play against a super strong computer that's stronger than any professional, I still like to play the game with my friends casually, and the professionals like to play it professionally. A bunch of people got hyped about the game because they learned about it through AI, and more Go boards and Go stones have been sold at that point than ever before. So there's a bunch of all these positive things happening that could very easily translate essentially to any profession. Like we can't know that it will, right? Because this is still just a game, let's be honest, but it's easy to see that kind of future happening in, for example, the medical profession or the learning industry where I come from, or the transport industry, or any sort of venture that we have such as that, because it's again just a foundational human thing, I think, to just want to do these things that are fun for us and interesting and engaging and challenging. And just having a powerful tool that can do it better than us or as good as us will not stop us from doing these things, right? And it will just empower us, which is a very, very nice thing that happened. And also just a brief addition, I won't harp on too long about this, but for anyone that's really interested in this topic with AI and games, I would suggest looking up what Gary Kasparov did after losing to AI. He started looking very deeply into why this happened, how AI is intelligent and better at playing chess than he was at that point. And he had some very interesting insights and spent basically 20 years looking into AI. He is also a strong advocate of approaching regulation around AI as early as possible. And this hasn't happened yet, but one very interesting insight that he has is that human players combined with AI make the best chess players, not AI alone, not humans alone, but people who are proficient at using the AI to make intelligent decisions in the game. And these are not necessarily chess masters, right? Because chess masters have this thing called ego around them, where actually much better performers are chess amateurs who understand the game very well, but then know how to use the AI very well as well. So what his like sort of message with AI is that we should be learning how to use these tools, how to use them effectively, and not necessarily try to go against them, right? Okay, that's it.
Okay, side question. If these are the things that you're teaching your students, can I become your student? That would be amazing.
I'll gladly take on any student at any point. Yeah.
I'm also kind of having this imposter syndrome, like Katy, coming from a totally different field in tech. So I think becoming your student would do me some good. I'm kidding.
I also teach Irish Nancy, if anyone's interested. No joke.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Up for next question. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about history and if it's teaching us something. We talked about like how are we seeing, but my question is now, what needs to change and or evolve now so that we can actually adapt for this amazing future that we are seeing in tech or that we are trying to predict?
Okay, so back to choices not being choices, right? Okay, so well, there I would like to, because again, I come from a technological background, so I would like to speak about this rather new technology that's been in this Web3 space, and it has developed during the past 2 years. It's called zero knowledge proofs. And it's a technology, basically a new form of cryptography, like new from the implementation perspective. It was like mathematically invented like around in the 80s somewhere. And basically what this technology allows you to do is that it allows you to prove to someone else the information without revealing anything in addition to that. So without them learning anything new about it. So what is the example of this? The example of this can be like, okay, let me share an example. We have, for example, Alice and Bob, and Bob is colorblind, and being colorblind, Alice wants to convince him that the two balls that he has are of different color, for example, red and green. And he cannot, of course, tell the difference. So he can use a simple protocol to learn if Alice is telling the truth or not. He hides the balls behind his back, and of course, he first shows which ball is in which hand, and then he hides the balls behind his back, and he may switch the balls or he may not, and then he shows the balls to Alice again. And the only thing that she responds is whether or not the balls have switched places. And the first time Bob does this, he, of course, can be suspicious that Alice is lying to him because she had a 50% chance of guessing, right? She tells like you switch the balls and he's still not sure. But the second time he can perform this a second time. And then if she guesses again, he can be a little bit more sure. So as long as he keeps continuing on this and Alice keeps guessing, it's for him he becomes more and more sure that she is actually telling the truth. So at the end, what do we have? We have Bob, who learned that these two balls are of different color, definitely. He didn't learn which ball is of which color, so he didn't learn anything new other than this. And Alice, of course, has performed what she was trying to do. So I of course explained this very simply because it actually has very complex math behind it. And the thing here, what this technology allows you to do is, let me share just a few examples. For example, I can prove to you that I know a solution to a Sudoku puzzle without revealing the actual solution. So you just know that I know, but you don't know what the solution is. Or, for example, I can prove to you that I'm older than 18 years old without revealing my age, or without having my passport scanned by your website and stored in some database, because that's the way you need to verify how old I am. And also I can, I don't know, tomorrow maybe I can also prove that, for example, that I'm human this way, because I without revealing who I actually am, what's my name. And this type of technology, why am I saying that I'm excited about this technology, is because so far, you know, Google and these other huge companies, they usually say when people attack them from perspective, you store a lot of data, etc. They say we do that to provide you a service. You know, in order for you to have a service, we simply need to know these things. Because, for example, if you want to search something on Instagram, they ask for you to reveal the location to enable the location. Otherwise, you cannot use the search function. So because of course they want to present to you the content that is nearby or something like that that's relevant to you. But with this technology, you can, for example, share a location, being like, okay, I am in Belgrade, without sharing the exact coordinates of where you are. So this technology is something that I believe can help us to have an alternative in the future, an alternative where, if since the technology being built on the blockchain is open source and it is executed in such a way where everyone needs to be able to read what is being done programmatically in order for the technology to function. It doesn't function the other way around. You cannot have a centralized server like Google does at the moment and present the information to everyone. That's simply not how technology works. So this is the technology that I believe can change, that makes me hopeful about the future, and that I believe can change the status quo that it is and can offer us a better choice than the ones we have today.
The light at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so me again from another perspective. I would say the one thing that I would invest most into is the ability to focus. So with everything happening around us, a huge pile of information and choices, I feel like we are going to have more and more problems by separating what's important, what's not, what to focus on, when to do it. So that would be, I think if I had a company, I would even invest in people just being in charge of bringing people back to the subject, bringing people back to their plan, bringing people back to the goal. And I feel like there is not enough of that. And I feel that since we are known, we humans, as being bad at estimates, I think this would help a lot with predicting what we are going to achieve in the future. And also the obvious answer, the other thing would be emotional regulation, as I feel that we are pretty bad with, I mean, we can recognize emotions, of course, but what to do with them is not so known. So I guess I would help people learn about ways in which they can cope with it. And not just for the sake of emotions, but I guess because it's tied to productivity, to being able to be creative, to be innovative, to think of new ways of doing things. So I think a huge potential lies there. If we can manage ourselves, I guess we can then contribute, perform, have ideas. So I know these are obvious answers, but I think we don't spend enough time on them. So again, I would return to those basic things and do that. So that's from me.
Thank you both. Thank you, Anja. I was thinking a lot about the attention span crisis that we are surely living in. I would love that to happen too. I was thinking about something a bit more philosophical, and also reaching from the history of tech, is the representation and inclusion of whom is a decision maker, who is a builder, who is contributing to the development of tech, and on a very abstract level, and maybe something that relates to my core skills in people development, is how we approach roles in organizations, in hiring, how we plan for hiring, how we plan for people to have long life careers, because that's fundamentally is changing. When I think about when my generation, I'm late 30s, I don't plan to retire because I don't even know if there will be money to retire. So I'm planning to actually work as long as I live, but I also recognize I have less energy to do so with every year, even though I'm very excited and inspired by the things that are happening. But I would like to find a way of how we include also people who are, you know, over 50, over 60, over 70 to further tech development, how we make sure there is no generational population left behind, how we make sure that generations do talk to each other and understand each other, that are curious about their challenges and perspectives. And same would apply to any human differences. I would talk about the genders, I would talk about the countries of origin, cultures. Not saying that there will be one universal experience, because there will be not, but to make sure that those diverse perspectives are included in developing tech products experience for us collectively. And that is not a history written in a particular part of the world. With the quite recent remote first, distributed, asynchronous ways of working, I see potential in doing that, although it's challenging. And recently, as a people leader, I see a lot of backward tendency of saying, well, it didn't really work out, so let's get all back to the office, because it's nice to see people. And yes, it's lovely to see people. It's lovely to be able to experience the closeness, the connection. But in terms of the productivity, I'm not too sure. I still believe we can do partially or exclusively some work on our home offices. And I personally have been working remotely since 4 years now, which helped me to also draw a very healthy line. What is socializing? What is work? When do I need to see the humans? When do I need to be in person? And why? So in many ways, I'm coming back to thinking how we design the human experience, making sure it's not one history, it's not written by a person of a certain gender, age, language skills, and location. Because I'm fearing with the distribution, but also geographical universality, that the world should not become a very unified and sort of bland place, but I would rather see a world with lots of innovation, creativity, but coming from different perspectives, and not everyone using the same app, watching the same TV series around the world, and using, certain device family the same way. Well, that's me.
We're not going to say which device family. Yeah, I think it's also interesting that you said that I also don't think that I'm gonna wait for retirement, because I'm not sure if it's ever gonna happen. But I think that's also important, because if we look at our parents' age, for example, they would wait for retirement to go and start traveling and living and doing whatever. Now with remote, you're actually having a chance to kind of do those things in parallel and kind of live throughout your life and not wait for a moment where you retire and then you also don't know if you're going to get sick or how that's going to look like. So I think, using the best out of both worlds while still finding ways to become or to remain as productive as possible, as useful as possible, as focused as possible. I think it's again the matter of choice, right?
Yes, and I have a great word for what you've just described. I actually recommend to whomever who can do it to intermittently retire while you're still 30 something or 20 something or 40 something, then come back with new energy, restored energy, new ideas. And I guess maybe that's also the way workplaces and careers should be designed. Not very linear, not very longitudinal, but intermittent, curvy.
That's such a cool idea, and I think a really good approach to the situation where we find ourselves now. So I mean, if you ask me what I think should change with our approach to technology if we want to have a good, bright future with it, I think it's mostly coming to terms with the fact that it changes so much that it's hard to keep track. We have come to a point where it's become really very difficult to know what's happening in the world of tech. And even though, like, from what we've said already, I guess you gather that my view of the future of tech is very positive and very bright. I don't think that optimism needs to like preclude us from being skeptical or I guess critical of what we're doing. And I think that something that's very obvious is happening now, especially with the advent of social networks and how news media works right now, is it's very easy to get lost in the clutter. And what I think we need is to have, what we need to focus on is to have clear ways of communicating among each other what it is that's happening in tech and what we want to have tech do for us, right? In a very like concrete example with AI, the most important issue with AI right now is not what AI can or can't do, it's how do we regulate what we do with AI, right? Because that's going to be the determining factor if someone can use it maliciously or not. And thankfully, we are getting on that train. Like AI experts have been advocating regulation for quite a while now, but right now people who can actually act on that are listening and acting, and that's good. But like even broader than that, just using, avoiding using social media in the like default way where you just read the headline and then not read the rest of the paragraph, the rest of the news article, and then not going to the sources is gonna be, I think, a source of downfall for us if we don't take care about it. Especially because tech is gonna be, it's accelerating, right? The advance of technology, that's very clear and that's very obvious. So if we keep having this short attention span, if we keep like not paying attention to what's actually going on around us, that's going to be like the way that we mishandle tech or have tech mishandle us. So we need to either like slow down or find ways to like just absorb things more deeply and understand them more deeply. So this is connected to learning as well, but I think mostly communication among each other as peers, and then having news outlets and social media be accountable for what they show us, finding a way to do that. How to do that, I don't know, but this is what needs to change. So that's just like the brief answer to the question. But I see this as like a core problem in our relation to the future of tech. Right?
Okay. Anyone got inspired to ask a question or share thoughts? Yes. Milos is coming.
So this on? Can you hear me? This got me thinking a lot about how we're kind of in a bubble here, right? We're all very privileged to be in this nice office space and be talking about these great ideas. And we're kind of talking about it as if everybody equally uses this type of technology and everybody has equal access to it. And we're talking about AI making us more productive. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on just how rapidly technology is advancing, and is that like a democratizing force for people to become, more capable, or will that create a greater chasm between those of us that kind of do have this privilege to have access to it and to have this knowledge, and like as Katy said, older generations who are not as well versed with it? Is it creating a divide, or is it a bridge that will kind of pull all those forward?
Love the question. Thank you, Maya. Anyone wants to take over?
I can start and then, yeah.
Thank you.
So I think that's like a super important question, and one that we should be keeping in mind as we move forward. I absolutely agree that we are in a bubble here. So it would be good to find a way to translate this topic that we're talking about to the broader masses, right? But doing that takes a lot of effort and a lot of energy, and I think that would be energy well spent, right? So technology can definitely be used, I think, to democratize. So blockchain is a good example where, for example, it's still pretty hard to say how blockchain is useful, but decentralized finance is one application. And now you have people across the world being able to access financial functions that they would not have at their fingertips if they're not, for example, in the United States or Western Europe or something like that, which is kind of an interesting use case of technology being used to give people who wouldn't have access to some services that they can use them. But for sure, something that seems clear is that current state of like the way we communicate globally on the internet is like very naturally separating us into bubbles. So I think that's something that would be super exciting to think about and to try to develop is communication platforms that actually break those barriers and get people from different backgrounds to communicate together in a way that's constructive and productive. And that, I guess, making that sort of connection could be a job for AI. I don't know. But for sure, definitely something to think about, something that's super important, and that could, if mishandled, could also take us like in a bad way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, we're on a call. So I want to also to say, I wanted to say that part that that Bane has said pretty well about the AI being able to help there, maybe. Also, like I can imagine it, how to say, it's hard to say everyone can afford something because some people don't have like mobile phones or laptops or, anything. But for a lot of people, actually, AI might help, or at least some sort of AI in the future might help make a more informed decisions, for example, because right now, the way the general public usually makes a decision is like you have your champions, you have people you believe in, and then you take a look at the advice that they give you. Usually, if you're like in the crypto tech, you follow maybe Edward Snowden, and then he speaks about the subject and you sort of form your opinion around that, because a lot of subjects are too complex for wide masses to like think about and to understand. So they're like, you just look at your peer. If you trust them, you say, okay, I'm thinking the same thing. With AI, I believe that it can help, how to say, that it can learn a lot about you and that it can help you to experience the world like in your way, where a lot of things can actually be, I don't want to say like simplified, but like, told to you in a way where you would understand it. And I believe that tomorrow, given again, the choices that we have to make, and I think that people are the ones who need at the end to decide how are they going to use this tech, whether they're gonna stop using some technology or continue using it. My only hope for the future is that this will be like pretty transparent, like what you're giving up actually when you're using something, because nothing comes for free. Although Google, YouTube, etc., for many years have tried to convince us that it's completely for free, but in the end, You'll, at the end, some of us learn that it's not. Others probably are still like, you know, it's free. So yeah, for me, that's the hope for the future. And since AI is such a big opportunity right now, I think that there will be a lot of different AIs. So maybe not like large language models, but maybe like smaller AIs which you can use, where you can maybe transparently pay either with your data or with your money if you don't want to pay with data. Maybe that's an option as well. Because maybe for someone, he doesn't care if that's like, you know, I can share my data since that's maybe cheaper than money. No. I don't know if someone else has an opinion on this, or someone in the audience as well can share their opinion.
Mike is traveling, getting there.
It's on? Okay. So my expertise is AI, and besides the development, I do a lot of lecturing. And I did many educations and presentations. And the first question I'm being asked is always, will AI replace us? When it's going to happen? Is it going to kill us? How soon? How quickly? And for example, is it already in the Air Force and things like that? And I'm always wondering, and actually what I'm trying actively to change that paradigm, instead of trying to predict the future, of course, while being aware of potential consequences, but how can we exploit the benefits of AI instead of fearing it? And to focus on applications, on effectiveness, and these things as well. But what was my thoughts always is, and maybe you can answer something like that, what drives that fear? So of course it comes from media and from the hype, but in your opinion, is there something else that pushes people to think that much about these things? Thank you.
Maybe I can give a mic now to our psychologist here to answer that one. Yeah, therapist. I thought about that a lot, and I think it comes down to one thing, and that is the general fear of unknown, especially when it comes to a complicated thing that requires a higher IQ, where you think that you're not able to understand every part of it. So I think that overwhelms us, and that we need to be put in a situation where we have to understand it, or at least use it. And also to Maya's question, I would tie those two, because I think that as time goes by, we see that we are actually starting to use everything that we must use. I don't know, the stupid example is those screens in McDonald's where you have to buy the food. So it's like, I have a friend who used to go to the cash register, but then when lines were huge, she said, okay, teach me, how does this work? So now she's using it. And I think first time I showed her that, she was red, she was afraid, she was trembling. And I said, okay, do you want to try now? And then she did it, and she said, well, this is easy. So I think it's always, I'm going to be incapable, stupid, I'm going to embarrass myself. So the shame is like the general thing, that the emotion that stays there. But I think if we invite people, if we show them, if we give them examples and make it more user-friendly, I don't think there will be a gap between those two. I think somehow maybe a lag, but not a gap.
Okay, so looking at the time and my unique inability to stick to the agenda, I'm going to try it now and maybe just try and close up with a short question. Is the future of tech bright from where you're standing, and why? And why yes?
I can start. I thought about the shades of and patterns of colors. I believe everything we talk about has a little bit of brightness, lightness, and a little bit of darkness. And I've given some thought also that we need both shades in our lives, because it also brings different energy, and I'm not gonna get into there, but I prefer to see it as a spectrum, as a rainbow of colors. Because if we don't learn about the darkness, the fears, the scares, and the wounds also from the past, we might be naive. We might be seeing everything through really pink glasses, as we say in my country. And that's not a real picture. Whereas if we wear those really dark shades, that's also not a real picture either. So learning from the mistakes, being agile, adapting, making sure we are not underestimating the risks, but not fearing mistakes, also trying, experimenting, finding this almost childlike energy to be playful around it. I think that's my take about the color of future of tech.
I thought about this question yesterday, and I realized that it comes down to if I believe that people are generally good or generally evil. And I have to say, I really think they are generally good. And I think that, and I think it will be bright, but not like 100%, but it's never 100%. And I think it's okay, because that would mean a perfect, boring world. So, no. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm convinced that the future of tech is bright, because that's simply just continuing the trend that we already have. So we live in an age where people live longer lives than they ever have on average. People are more fed than they ever were on average, are happier than they ever were on average, and more fulfilled, more creative. We have more things to do than we ever could do. So if you want to do something interesting and fun that has never been done, this is the best time to do it historically, since like when we started doing fun things. So like it's only safe to assume that it's going to continue, and let's just stay critical and open about it, keep talking about it, and I'm sure that we can make it happen, because humans are great. Yeah.
Okay, so if we have the time, yeah, I can share my thought. I like to think that it's bright, and I can share a story of why I think that. The story is, once again, related to tech. You probably, most of you know about Sam Altman. He's like the founder of the OpenAI and the company behind ChatGPT. And this guy has another company, and that company is called WorldCoin. And what WorldCoin is trying to do, they are trying to build a digital identity for everyone. So they are trying to offer you a way to prove that you're human online, but not prove like when you click on a captcha, and then you prove that you're human, but you can do it a million times. No, that you're like, you have a digital signature of like your humanity, and you're like one person on the internet. They're trying to do that to offer like universal basic income through their token, but I wouldn't bother you about that. The way that they're doing this is that they built a hardware device that they call the Orb, which is like ominous pretty much. And it has the cameras in it, and it scans your face, like the eyes and everything. And then it provides you with this digital signature that you have, and that's you online. And they built it. And then the community came around, and they were like, okay, how do we know that what you put inside this orb is what you say it's doing? So people were asking them that. And then what they had to do, they had to pause, and they had to take, quite a long time to think about how to make it in such a way to prove it to people that it only does what they say it does, without, of course, revealing all code, because then anyone else can like build it again. So they didn't want to do that. So they ended up like going into this zero knowledge technology, and they ended up like, at least that's what they're doing now. They're trying to build like to put this machine learning, because that's the machine learning is the technology that they use to recognize like your face and everything, to put it like inside of this zero knowledge technology in order to be able to actually prove that this device only does what it says it does. And here is my point for like optimism, and that point is like that. Well, community was the one that actually made them do this. They wouldn't do this if the people weren't like, we're not going to use this, and they were very vocal about it. So yeah, so in my opinion, future tech is right.
And kind of has a strong input from the community, which is why we're all here. So thank you so much. I'm more than grateful, and I cannot express that enough for all of your thoughts and all what you shared here, and all of your thoughts and everything that you put in here. So with that, I would say the panel is closed. If you wish to give an applause, I think that's also fine. Okay, so before we jump into a break, let me give you a brief prep on what's upcoming. So we're going to have a break, 20-minute break, in which you will be asked to vote and also get a refreshment, get some food, refresh yourselves, kind of whatever you need. And then we're going to start with the open space. The most important thing to remember now is that the first 10 minutes will be reserved for voting. So use that time, vote first, and then grab something to eat or drink, because we will need your votes to actually figure out the rest of the open space. First things first, I'm sure that you all read my beautiful 5 pages email in which I try to also explain what's open space all about. We're going to model that so you don't have to worry too much. But one thing that I would really like to emphasize here today is one rule that we have in open space, and that's the rule of 2 feet. If at any point in any of these parallel streams, you end up feeling that you're not contributing or getting value from the conversation, please feel free just to walk away, get a drink, choose another stream or whatever you like. So you really don't have to be there. It's only if you are getting or creating value. No one will be angry. No one will get that as an offense. It's totally okay to do it. That's the whole point behind the thing. So we will have 2 rounds in open space. So let me stand up so that I can show it very easily. So over there on the board, you will have 5 topics spread out. Unfortunately, what happened is that we had 2 last-minute cancellations from Malisha and Jelena, and so we're now up with 5 topics. What I will ask you to do is to first vote for the one that is most compelling, most interesting to you. 1 vote each, so you will all have just 1 vote for the first round. Pick 1 topic that is most interesting to you. Then, depending on how your votes are spread, we're going to decide if we're going to have 2 or 3 parallel streams, just so that we can create the most value out of it. Once we know that, we will have 2 or 3 parallel streams, and the places where the open space conversations are going to happen are actually these stands here on my right. So aircraft crew kind of. So 1, 2, 3. Once the voting is done, we will just stamp the posters behind so that you know which place is for which topic. And yeah, mind the time when you're in an open space, because we will have 20 minutes for the first round, then another short break, 10 minutes for another round of voting, and then another round for the second round of topics. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions so far? I was trying to make this as easy as possible. So yeah, I already said that. Step one, once I kind of, once we get into the break, vote for the topic that is most important to you, that is most compelling, get a drink, relax, do whatever you need to do. And then once the break is done, look at these 3 places, figure out where is the topic that you chose and go there. If your topic, the one that you chose, is not currently on in one of the streams, then just choose another one, or sit back, relax, get a drink, or whatever you need, and wait for another round. Maybe it happens there. Open space is pretty much created in a way, and it serves
the purpose of interaction. So that is, we will have people bringing the topics, but not in a formal presentation, but rather just a conversation starter. So feel free to engage, share, interact, do whatever you need to do, ask questions that you're interested in over there. Once the first round is done, 20 minutes are over, I will be using these thing that we tried out in the beginning, like waving and putting my hand up. We're gonna try and silence the place, take another break, and then rinse and repeat. Make sense? Okay, amazing. Feel free to start your break. Let's do a 20-minute one.